Unfortunately, it's not just the Monday night games. Injuries are a theme across the NFL coming out of week 2. It's something that's going to bear monitoring as we move forward. Chief among those, something we mentioned in the recap show, Saquon Barkley gets an MRI on the ankle injury he suffered in the win against Arizona on Sunday. It does, as far as injuries that require MRIs go, it does seem to be pretty good news for Saquon Barkley. It's a standard ankle sprain as opposed to a high ankle sprain. The dreaded high ankle sprain typically comes with a 6+ week recovery timeline. A standard ankle sprain, they're saying right now, potentially as few as 3 weeks for Saquon Barkley to return to the lineup. That's wonderful news for the big picture of the Giants season, because you could have Saquon back sometime in early October. It's not very good news for right this second, however. It always seems like it happens this way. The Giants lose Saquon for a quick turnaround, a Thursday night trip to face the San Francisco 49ers out on the West Coast. They're actually staying in Arizona, so they don't have to do all that jet setting back and forth across the country. As if downing the Niners wasn't going to be hard enough, you're going to have to do it without arguably your best player in Saquon Barkley. Some quick tips, whether it's fantasy or otherwise, the guys you need to know as far as replacements. Keep an eye on Matt Breida. Maybe that name sounds familiar. The 7th-year veteran. Actually, the best stretch of his career was when he played for San Francisco from 2017 to 19. Had a really nice stint there, tallying 1,900 rushing yards while he was a 49er. Hasn't really been a featured guy in the time since, though. He hasn't carried the ball 10 or more times in a game since 2020, kind of bounced around to a few different teams. But he is a 7th-year vet. He's done this the most. I would imagine he's first in line to replace Saquon, or at the very least, be the first guy on the field. Never forget, old coach speak. They love a running back that can pass protect, and that's probably Matt Breida, so that's something to keep in mind. Also worth mentioning, Eric Gray, the 5th-round rookie out of Oklahoma. He's been their punt returner so far this season. He has not taken a carry in the regular season, but I wouldn't be surprised if that changes on Thursday night. And then there's Gary Brightwell, 3rd-year running back, probably the biggest dude of the three, which is worth noting when you're going against the team as physical as San Francisco, but just 1 carry on the year. So not a lot of wonderful options, but those are the 3 guys that I would imagine, no time to bring somebody new in when you're on a short week. I would imagine those are the guys to turn to. Sticking with running back news in the NFC North, David Montgomery left that Detroit loss to Seattle with a thigh injury. There's going to be something interesting to watch as Detroit gets ready for week 3. Montgomery told reporters on Sunday he'll probably need a couple weeks to bounce back from this. Lions coach Dan Campbell listed Montgomery as day-to-day. Classic football coach not wanting to give away the deets about an injury. Something to watch. I wish I had more for you, but when it comes to stuff like this, keep an eye on the injury report. It'll be interesting to see if Montgomery is truly day-to-day, if he can get into practice this week, or if it's something that's going to take a longer amount of time to figure out. We will see how that goes. A couple minor things. Jalen Waddle and Anthony Richardson, Miami receiver, Colts quarterback, both in concussion protocol after having head injuries on Sunday. Hopefully they'll be all right and they progress through that sooner rather than later. 2 absolutely electric players. Here's something I wanted to touch on. Philadelphia nickelback Avonte Maddox officially undergoing surgery on a torn pec. He's out indefinitely. Not sure right now if that means the entire season, but at the very least, he's going to miss a large chunk of it. It's not an easy thing to bounce back from. The injury bug, officially a thing in Philadelphia. They were one of the healthiest teams in the league last year. It helped them to the Super Bowl. Not the case right now. We've only played 2 games, and 5 week 1 starters are currently dealing with injuries. Now, I'm going to put on my tinfoil hat for a second, because I know a thing or two about Eagles general manager Howie Roseman. The Cardinals also on Monday, the Arizona Cardinals, put star safety Budda Baker on injured reserve with a hamstring injury. He can return, but at the very least, that means he's out for 4 games. Baker won't be back until sometime in October. We already don't think all that highly of the Cardinals as a team. 0-2. Their next 3 games are against the Dallas Cowboys, the San Francisco 49ers, and the Cincinnati Bengals. Not a bad probability that this is a team with a lopsided record, and not in a good way by the time we get to October. I'm just saying, this is a young team that's clearly looking to rebuild its roster. Howie Roseman is known for throwing some draft picks around to try to win now. He did it just last year, sending a pick to New Orleans for Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, the safety. I'm just saying, I'm throwing it out there right now. The trade deadline's not until Halloween, but I wouldn't be surprised if Budda Baker finishes the season on a different team than he's on right now. And I wouldn't be surprised if a team that's trying to win a Super Bowl like the Philadelphia Eagles called the Cardinals about it. Just put a pin in that. We'll see where it goes. Elsewhere, quarterback news. We'll see what happens with Joe Burrow this week. He tweaked his calf injury on one of the last plays of that loss to Baltimore. To me, this seems like a classic football situation where that calf's going to be bothering Joe Burrow for the foreseeable future. I personally would be surprised if it holds him out of games, but that depends on the severity. If he can't move around the pocket and escape from pressure the way he's so famous for, then I don't know if it's safe to have him out there. Something to keep an eye on in Cincinnati. Leads us back to what we started talking about at the top of this whole thing. Aaron Rodgers undergoes Achilles surgery after suffering that injury on Monday Night Football just a week ago. It's honestly crazy to think that this was only 8 days ago. But now Rodgers is in the news as only he could be, because apparently he underwent a completely new surgery on that Achilles to put a speed bridge, which is some kind of brace, on the torn ligament. It allegedly protects the tissue while it's repairing and gives him at least a shot to return in as few as 4 months. I'm not betting against him. I saw Rodgers said in an interview last week, he wants people to bet against him and predict what he can and can't do. That's not going to be me, Aaron, if you're listening. But that would be one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. So opens up the door for a possible return in the playoffs. I saw somebody joking on social media that 4 months from right now would be Super Bowl weekend. Can't even imagine how bonkers of a story that would be. So another thing to put a pin in. Absolutely mind-bogglingly incredible if Aaron Rodgers can play again this season. Maybe this surgery allows him to. For the Jets' sake, it's at least a hope that you can hold on to, because I've talked about it a few times on this show already. I just don't know how long the goodwill for Zach Wilson is going to last. I know Jets players rallied around him in the locker room on Sunday following that loss to Dallas. They embraced him and said they believe in him. But at the same time, you have Breese Hall, the young running back, tweeting out 4 football emojis, which seems like a reference to the 4 carries that he got in the loss. And if that's not what it was, the fact that he deleted it certainly doesn't make you feel good about it. Sauce Gardner gets into it with fans on Twitter. This always happens in the age of social media. I don't envy cornerbacks who have to go against public perception. Fans are telling Sauce Gardner that he got cooked by CeeDee Lamb. Sauce Gardner says, watch the tape. I didn't even go against CeeDee Lamb that much. I'm sure it's very frustrating. He deletes his Twitter account. Just a perfect storyline for 2023. The main point being, there are a lot of very, very good football players on the New York Jets, and I don't know how long they're going to be okay with scoring 10, 12, 14 points a game. I don't know if it's Aaron Rodgers coming back in 4 months or if the Jets take a different path, but I remain convinced that something's got to give with the quarterback situation in New York, one way or the other.